This is going to be it. Hi ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mark Kroos. Welcome to JamPlay.com. I'm really excited to be here teaching a Phase 2 lesson series in a style that I like to call extreme folk guitar. And that's what we're going to be learning in this lesson series. We're going to be learning a lot of the techniques that I use and a lot of the other players in this style use. When I say this style, it's sort of become a style unto itself. Nobody really has a name for it. That's why I call it extreme folk guitar, and it works for me. But some people call it, lap tapping. Some people put the guitar down on their lap and play. I don't really do that at all myself, but that's fine if you want to try it. And it's all kind of grouped into that style, but the way that I like to teach this is by showing you a few things that I do, showing you a few examples, and then saying, hey, look, go out and write your own music, because that's how you learn to play this style. You learn a few pieces by other people. One great beginner piece to learn is Ragamuffin by Michael Hedges. Absolutely fantastic piece. Or if you wanted to learn the tune Drifting by Andy McKee, that's another good one to learn for beginners. So that one's going to use some two-hand stuff where you're doing two different things at the same time. Very basic stuff, but it might take a little while. Anyway, some of the techniques that we're going to be talking about in these video lessons are making a melody with just one hand, whether that's the left hand or the right hand, and playing power chords with just one hand. We might briefly get into doing kind of two different things at the same time, although that can get kind of complicated. But this lesson series, I guess you should think of it as geared towards intermediate guitarists to advanced guitarists. These are not going to be easy. You'll definitely be able to you'll probably be able to handle the first few lessons, but I do expect you to have a little bit of prior knowledge of the guitar, probably in standard tuning, because the tuning that we're going to be using mostly is called DAD-GAD tuning, which is D-A-D-G-A-D, and it's a wonderful tuning. It's awesome. It's what I use for a lot of my pieces. I would say it's probably the most commonly used tuning in this style. So we'll really be exploring through that and all of these different techniques. We'll learn some harmonics, some really interesting things like that, and we've got a phase 3 lesson set up for my version of Amazing Grace as well, which is going to use some of these techniques, but it's a little bit of an easier piece compared to playing on 2 necks at the same time. Which brings me to another thing. The lessons that we're doing, I'm not going to be using 2 necks at the same time. I mean, how many of you have a double neck guitar? Yeah, probably not too many of you. One thing that you can do, and one way that I started playing on 2 necks, was I set up another guitar in front of me in its case on a keyboard stand with the case open, and I used my right hand to play that guitar, and I used my left hand to play another guitar. This was all before I got the double neck, and it worked out well for me, and it got a lot easier once I got the double neck, and that was a few years back. I've been playing guitar since I was 12. I grew up listening to punk rock. Blink-182 was my favorite band for a long time, if you want to call that punk rock. I frankly can't stand to listen to them anymore, but I've gotten into a lot of more of the underground punk bands. That's a lot of what I listen to, actually. And then of course I listen to some guitar players as well. Michael Hedges was a huge influence of mine. Leo Kottke and Tommy Emmanuel is absolutely phenomenal as well. I know he does a lot more of the finger picking stuff, and I personally don't do a whole lot of the intense finger picking stuff. I do a lot more of the tapping thing, but Tommy is a phenomenal guitarist also. Other influences of mine include Bruce Springsteen. He is my all-time favorite artist, and also an Icelandic band called Sigur Rós. They've been very, very big in influencing my style of playing. And a few other things that we're going to talk about in the lessons. Just some basic things. We're not going to jump right into doing a bunch of tapping and that kind of stuff. We'll talk about the basics of setting up in DAD-GAD tuning and everything, setting up your guitar as well to be able to play it. So some beginners, we're not going to jump into it too quickly or anything. It'll be just fine. It'll be a whole lot of fun. We'll talk about how to use a capo properly, and maybe get into some partial capo work. In that tune that I played just now, Smoke and Mirrors, I used these capos, these shortcut capos made by Kaiser, and they're awesome. There's a lot that you can do with them. So please join me in the next lesson and we'll get started. I'm Mark Kroos, and you're watching JamPlay.com.